30 Zen stories to help calm the mind, find peace, and achieve true happiness. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Reading and enjoying the classic Zen stories in this collection will help you grasp the unique allure of Zen thought in a natural and relaxed way. Despite its depth, Zen is often expressed in a simple and lively manner, aiming to touch the heart without the need for words. Each story in this book reflects the wisdom of Zen masters and Buddhist scriptures, containing countless truths about life. It is truly a great book for life enlightenment. 1. What is this? In the Buddhist library, there was a Zen practitioner who never read sutras, only striking the wooden fish daily. The head librarian asked, "You strike the fish every day. Why don't you read the sutras?" The Zen practitioner replied, "Because I don't know how to read." The librarian said, "Why don't you ask someone to teach you?" The Zen practitioner asked, "Who should I ask?" The librarian impatiently replied, "You can ask me." The Zen practitioner stood up, bowed, and asked, "May I ask, what is this?" Upon hearing this question, the librarian was at a loss for words, as this refers to the true nature, which ultimately cannot be described. Zen does not rely on language or writing because words cannot express the original face of true nature. Master Huineng, before going to Huangmei, could understand sutras, but had not yet grasped the essence of the self. Upon arriving at the fifth patriarch, although he performed manual labor all day in the mill, he never read the scriptures but ultimately realized his true nature, showing that enlightenment does not come from words. Zen wisdom. Although the Zen practitioner never read the sutras, he practiced diligently by striking the fish daily. The kind librarian suggested reading sutras, but the practitioner used this opportunity to guide the librarian to enlightenment. Zen transcends language. With sincere practice, one can still discover the true nature. 2. Where is the senior monk? Zen Master Huangmi asked Zen Master Linji to deliver a letter to his fellow monk, Zen Master Weishan Lingyu. Upon receiving the letter, Weishan asked, "This is a letter from senior monk Huangmi, but where is the letter from the senior monk here?" Zen Master Linji immediately responded, "I already handed it to you." Both went to see Weishan. Weishan asked Linji, "How many disciples does Zen Master Huangmi have?" Linji replied, 700. Weishan asked, "Who is the senior monk?" Linji said, "I entrusted my brother monk Yangshan to deliver it." Yangshan held the letter and asked, "The letter is here, but where is the senior monk?" Linji then asked Weishan, "How many disciples are here?" Weishan replied, 1,500. Linji said, "That's quite a lot." Weishan remarked, "Master Huangmi has quite a few as well." Linji replied, "Since you have so many disciples, why not return a senior monk to us?" Weishan didn't answer and instructed Yangshan to escort Linji out. Yangshan told Linji, "Head north, you'll find the senior monk there." Linji asked, "Really?" Yangshan firmly replied, "Even if you leave, the senior monk will naturally recognize the senior monk, though with or without a tail, it's only a beginning without an end." After reaching Zhenzhou, Zen Master Puhua was already there, and when Linji wanted to build a monastic hall, he invited Puhua to assist. During Linji's flourishing period, Puhua passed away. Zen wisdom. Zen masters often don't directly reveal the essence of things. Their compassionate teachings are hidden within their words, encouraging students to realize the truth themselves. 3. A pile of scrap paper. Zen Master Hakuin had a disciple who claimed to be enlightened. This disciple neither worshipped Buddha nor burned incense, and he often used pages of the Great Prajna Sutra as scrap paper. He would say, "I am the Buddha, and since the Buddha's words are now present, these sutras are just scrap paper. Why shouldn't I use them?" Zen Master Hakuin, knowing this, said to him, "I've heard you've become a Buddha. How wonderful. But isn't the Buddha's seat so noble? Using scrap paper as a cushion seems inappropriate. From now on, please use clean white paper." Zen wisdom. True enlightenment transcends ordinary conventions. One can only make statements like, "The sutra is scrap paper," after understanding the true nature of the universe. But both clean and scrap paper should be respected. 4. Emptiness and form. One day, someone brought a beautifully embroidered waistband, typically worn by courtesans, to show to monk Traksh Am at Donghai Temple, intending to play a prank on him. Unexpectedly, the monk smiled and said, "What exquisite embroidery! I too enjoy the company of such fine people." Then he took a brush and wrote a verse, Buddhas sell Dharma, patriarchs sell Buddha, monks of the degenerate age sell patriarchs. A woman sells her 4-foot body, bringing peace to all beings suffering. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Green willows, red flowers, the moon shines on the clear pond every night. Neither the mind nor the image remains. Zen is emptiness. This emptiness is not just empty space. Emptiness is wisdom, while hollow means a vacant heart. The purpose of practicing Zen is to purify the mind and reduce desires, develop wisdom, and enhance compassion. If the mind cannot be still and is entangled with external objects, dealing with matters with a worldly attitude, how can one practice Zen? Thus, when the mind is calm, the image does not remain. Everything turns into emptiness. Zen wisdom. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Form refers to all things with shape, but only the perception of the mind gives them meaning. If the mind does not cling to form, all form will dissolve into emptiness. 5. Knowing form and desire. In Buddhism, form in the realm of form is not about color or female beauty, but rather refers to material things. Buddhism teaches that our understanding of material objects primarily relies on 2 aspects. First, manifest form, which is shape and appearance. Every phenomenon presents itself through these 2 aspects, so in Buddhism, material phenomena are called form. The heavens of the form realm are above the heavens of the desire realm. In the desire realm, enjoyment is related to physical pleasure, while in the form realm, pleasure comes from meditative joy. The former is material, while the latter is spiritual. Consequently, the requirements to ascend to the heavens of the desire realm or the form realm differ. A master once asked his disciples, "How would you avoid form?" Disciple A responded, "I would avoid the human world, never looking at form." Then, "How could form affect me?" The master said, "Though your eyes see no form, lust remains in your heart, and distance only increases it." Disciple B said, "I look at all forms as nothing more than white skeletons, filthy and terrifying, with no attachment to them." The master replied, "When one is in love, even a skeleton can seem more beautiful than peach blossoms. How can you claim no attachment?" Disciple C said, "Nothing in my sight is truly form, so I see but do not perceive." The master responded, "If you clearly know it is form, how can you say you don't see it? And if you've seen it, how can you claim not to perceive it? You're just deceiving yourself." Disciple D said, "Like someone gazing at flowers and birds, how can I avoid being influenced by things?" The master asked, "In that case, how are grass and flowers different from mountains and stones or from all other lifeless things?" Disciple E said, "Form is form, I am I. Seeing is seeing, so what? Avoiding is avoidance, and one need not be concerned. There's no point in debating it further." The master praised, "Well done, you truly understand form." If we can practice charity and observe the 5 precepts and the 10 virtues, giving of our wealth, knowledge, and abilities to others, while purifying our morality with the precepts, we can ascend to the heavens of the desire realm. To reach the form realm, charity and observing the 5 precepts and the 10 virtues are not enough. We must also practice meditation. Only with full concentration can one progress to higher levels in the form realm, which is divided into the 4 dhyanas and the 17 levels of heaven. The highest realm in the 3 worlds is the formless realm, which is a purely spiritual existence achieved through the cultivation of the 4 types of formless meditation: the meditation on infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception. Zen wisdom, Shakyamuni Buddha said, "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form." Sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness are also like this. Buddha neither clings to form nor emptiness. 6. Form is emptiness. One day, Zen Master Dongshan asked Zen Master Vanku, "Do you love form?" Vanku was sifting beans at the time and was so startled by the question that the beans in the basket spilled out onto the ground, rolling towards Dongshan's feet. Dongshan smiled and bent down to pick up each bean. Vanku was still troubled by Dongshan's question. He had no idea how to answer, for form encompasses such a broad scope: beauty, appearance, facial expressions. Do you choose colors when dressing? Do you care about the color of food and wine? Do you consider the color of walls when selecting a home? Do you rely on facial expressions to guide your actions? Are you attached to wealth, gold, and silver? Do you love female beauty? After thinking for a long time, Vanku answered, "No, I do not love form." Dongshan, still standing nearby, watched Vanku anxiously, avoiding the question, and said, "Before answering this question, did you think it through carefully? When you truly face it, can you remain calm?" Vanku boldly declared, "Of course I can." He then studied Dongshan's expression, hoping to find a hint, but Dongshan simply smiled without answering. Feeling strange, Vanku asked, "May I ask you a question now?" Dongshan replied, "Go ahead." Vanku asked, "Do you love female beauty? When faced with temptation, can you remain calm?" Dongshan laughed heartily and said, "I knew you'd ask that. To me, they're merely outward appearances, masking the filth beneath the skin. Whether I love or don't love is irrelevant. As long as my heart is steadfast, why worry about what others think?" Zen wisdom. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. With form in the eyes and emptiness in the heart, one can face all of life's temptations with equanimity. 7. The dead tree and the cold cliff. There was a monk who lived a highly disciplined and pure life, almost reaching the state of a saint. Because of this, many people admired him and followed him. Among them was an old woman who had been devotedly supporting him for 20 years, offering him donations. However, her way of offering was peculiar. She often sent young, beautiful women to serve him food and drink, as well as to care for his needs. But to the monk, these women were like gold coins to a cat, of no use. After 20 years, the old woman thought, "It's time." She instructed one of the young women to seduce the monk. "Go to him and be beautiful," she said, guiding the woman to flirt with him and speak sweetly. The monk, however, simply replied, "A dead tree leans on a cold cliff. Not even 3 winters would warm it." The girl returned and reported everything to the old woman. Furious, the old woman exclaimed, "I've supported him for 20 years for this." She immediately expelled the monk from his hermitage and even set fire to his hut. This is the origin of the phrase, "the dead tree on the cold cliff." The first step in learning Zen is controlling one's own thoughts. If we can control our thoughts, the mind becomes free, and one can take a big step toward Zen. Zen wisdom. Zen is about controlling the mind and freeing oneself from delusion and temptation. 8. Enlightenment brings peace of mind. Emperor Liang Wu of the southern and northern dynasties in China is often regarded as one of the most morally upright emperors in history. He took pride in his teachings on the Prajna Paramita Sutra and Nirvana Sutra, and was especially proud of his accomplishments in this regard. When he met Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen Buddhism, who had come from India to China, he couldn't hide his self-satisfaction. Emperor Liang Wu asked Bodhidharma, "Since I ascended the throne, I have built many temples, printed numerous sutras, and offered countless donations to monks and nuns. How much merit do you think I have accumulated?" Bodhidharma coldly replied, "Not a single merit worth mentioning." The emperor was astonished by this response and quickly changed the subject. "What is the highest truth?" "There is no highest truth," Bodhidharma responded. The emperor then asked, "Who is it that stands before me?" "I don't know," Bodhidharma said. Seeing the bewilderment and confusion on Emperor Liang Wu's face, it became clear that the emperor expected affirmation and praise for his good deeds, such as building temples, writing sutras, and donating to the Buddhist community. However, Bodhidharma's statement, "There is no merit," was a method of cutting through the emperor's attachment to these worldly acts. Bodhidharma wasn't completely denying the value of temple building, sutra writing, or offering alms, but he was attempting to break the emperor's attachment to merit and ego, so he could transcend to a higher spiritual realm. Although Emperor Liang Wu was devoted to Buddhism and had established temples across the land, some criticized his excessive spending on religious activities as a cause of financial strain and weakening of the state. So where was the merit in that? Zen wisdom. Enlightenment brings natural peace of mind, which is the goal of Zen. Clinging to attachments and actions only leads to suffering. The world in its essence is nothing. Why strive for what is fleeting? All things arise and pass due to cause and effect. 9. Enlightenment through objects. There was once a king known for his pride and arrogance, though he also had a sincere devotion to Buddhism. Despite his faith, he found it difficult to calm his mind for spiritual practice. One of his hobbies was cockfighting. So he asked a highly accomplished monk to train his fighting roosters, hoping to gain victory through their prowess. One day, the king asked the monk, "Monk, has the rooster been trained well yet?" The monk replied, "Not yet. The rooster is still too arrogant and aggressive, difficult to control." The king understood that the monk was also referring to him, so he returned to reflect on himself for a few days before asking again, "Has the rooster been trained well now?" "Not yet. They are still frightened by the slightest noise," the monk replied. After several days of self-reflection, the king asked again, "How about now?" The monk responded, "Still not yet. Their sharpness and aggression are still visible, pointing toward others." At this point, the king had a moment of awakening, and after a few days came to visit the monk, asking, "Master, how have you been lately?" The monk asked, "Do you still care about the roosters?" "Not anymore," the king said gently. "I have no more interest in cockfighting. I've come to seek guidance from you instead." The monk smiled and said, "Very good. The roosters have reached the highest state, appearing as if they were wooden sculptures." Zen wisdom. Zen aims to guide people to enlightenment by using their true nature to observe their delusions, thereby realizing the essence of the mind. 10. Do not act without purpose. A novice monk named Nguyen Tri studied under Zen master Vo Duc. Although he worked diligently, he struggled to grasp the teachings of Zen. One evening, during a meditation session, Nguyen Tri sought guidance from Master Vo Duc. "I have been a student here for many years, yet I still don't understand Zen. I feel that I have wasted the generous support from donors. Beyond daily practice and tasks, are there any essential lessons I must learn?" Master Vo Duc replied, "You must tame 2 hawks, 2 falcons, and 2 deer. You must also restrain a worm inside your mouth. Moreover, you must constantly spar with a bear and care for a sick person. If you can do these things diligently, they will benefit you greatly." Nguyen Tri was perplexed and said, "Master, since I've been here, I've never seen any hawks, deer, or falcons. How can I possibly care for them? And how do these animals relate to Zen teachings?" Zen Master Vo Duc smiled and explained, "The 2 hawks represent your eyes, which you must discipline. Do not gaze upon what is not appropriate. The 2 deer are your feet, which you must guide carefully. Do not walk down the path of wrongdoing. The 2 falcons are your hands, which must be busy fulfilling your duties. Do not act without purpose. The worm refers to your tongue, which you must restrain. Do not speak if it is not appropriate. The bear is your mind, which you must curb. Do not let selfishness and personal desires control you. The sick person refers to your body. Do not let it fall into wrongdoing. These are the essential lessons on the path to enlightenment." In Buddhist teachings, the 6 faculties, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, are like an uninhabited village that has been taken over by thieves. They constantly engage with the 6 worldly objects, creating negative karma. These faculties are like wild animals, and only by taming them can one find harmony with both Buddhism and Confucianism. Zen wisdom. A Zen practitioner is someone with a Buddha mind. Zen is the heart of the Buddha, a natural purity that everyone possesses. Settling the mind, calming the mind, awakening the mind, and realizing one's original Buddha nature. These are the most important lessons in Zen practice. 11. Birth and death are impermanent. Zen Master Tao Qian was a famous monk during the Southern Song dynasty and the founder of Neo-Confucianism. Renowned scholar Zhu Xi studied Zen in Tao Qian's retreat and considered the recorded sayings of great Master Hui an important teaching text. Tao Qian had many outstanding disciples. One day, a senior disciple shared a story with the younger students. Long ago, there was a king who had many sons, but desperately wanted a daughter. Finally, his beloved concubine gave birth to a beautiful princess. The king cherished her, treating her like a precious gem, never scolding her. He granted her every wish without hesitation. One afternoon, after a rainstorm, the princess played in the garden with her maids. The freshly washed flowers and trees shimmered in the sunlight, their colors vibrant yet wistful. The princess was captivated by the scent of lotus flowers drifting from a nearby pond. Approaching the water, she discovered something she had never seen before. Shimmering, pearl-like water droplets formed from the steam rising from the warm pond. Enchanted, the princess thought, "If I could string these pearls of water together and wear them on my head, I would look so beautiful." Determined, she called her maid to gather the water pearls. However, As soon as the maid touched the bubbles, they disappeared. After hours of trying, they couldn't gather a single water pearl. Frustrated, the princess returned to the palace and dragged her father to the pond. Pointing to the sparkling water droplets, she said, "Father, you love me the most. You always give me whatever I want. Look at these beautiful water pearls. I want them made into a necklace for my head. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" The king lovingly stroked her hair and said, "My dear child, though the water pearls are beautiful, they are nothing but illusions. How can we turn them into a necklace? Let me find you a crystal necklace, even more beautiful than these water pearls." No, I only want the water pearls. If you don't give them to me, I'd rather die," the princess cried. The king, at a loss, summoned his ministers to the garden and said with deep sorrow, "You are all highly skilled. If any of you can gather the water bubbles from the pond and string them into a necklace for the princess, I will reward you handsomely." The ministers looked at each other in confusion. Finally, one said, "Your Majesty, water pearls disappear at the slightest touch. How could we possibly string them together?" "Useless," the king roared. "I have showered you with favor all these years, and yet you can't even grant my daughter's simple wish. If you can't fulfill her request, none of you will leave the palace alive." At that moment, an elderly Zen master with white hair and a long beard stepped forward. Calmly he said, "Your Majesty, do not be angry. I have a way to string the water pearls for the princess. However, I am old and my eyesight is poor. Princess, could you kindly pick out the roundest water pearls for me?" Excited, the princess immediately bent down to scoop the water bubbles. But as soon as she touched them, they burst and vanished into the water. After many attempts, she still couldn't gather a single pearl. Seeing the princess's disappointment, the Zen master gently said, "Water pearls are impermanent. If we build our desires on such illusions, they will naturally vanish, leaving us with nothing." Zen wisdom. Illusory fame, wealth, power, and worldly desires are as fleeting as water bubbles. Chasing them will only lead to suffering. When faced with such dazzling yet impermanent things, we should appreciate their beauty without being misled by their appearance. 12. The button of time. There was once a young man with a very impatient nature, unable to remain calm in anything he did. One time, he had a date with his girlfriend and arrived early. His impatience caused him to pace nervously beneath a tree, unable to sit still. At that moment, a Zen master with long white eyebrows, exuding an ethereal and serene aura, approached him. The Zen master held out a button and said to the young man, "If you don't want to wait, simply turn this button to the right, and you will leap forward in time as far as you wish." The young man thought, "I must have encountered a true deity." He eagerly turned the button once, and instantly his girlfriend appeared, walking towards him. Thinking that it would be even better if they could proceed to their wedding right away, he turned the button again. Suddenly, they were in the midst of a grand wedding, with music playing and a feast spread out before them. Sitting beside his bride, he looked into her eyes and thought, "It would be wonderful if it were just the two of us alone now." He gently turned the button again, and the night became quiet and peaceful. He continued to turn the button. He had children, then grandchildren, and before he knew it, he had a large family. He became a high-ranking official. He's receiving praise wherever he went and felt elated inside. Eventually, as he turned the button to its final position, the young man had become old and frail. His ungrateful children squandered his fortune and left him abandoned in a desolate field. He became weak, starving, and was finally left to die, gnawed by crows and rats until he was just a pile of remains. His hair disheveled and his heart cold, the young man reflected on his life. "Well," asked the Zen master, "do you still wish for time to pass faster?" "I'm already dead. How could it go any faster?" the young man replied, feeling utterly deflated, like a balloon that had lost all its air. At that moment, the Zen master took back the button, and the young man found himself back under the tree full of vitality again, continuing to wait for his beloved. This time, he noticed the warmth of the sunlight, heard the birds chirping, and watched the graceful dance of the butterflies among the trees. Waiting for his girlfriend now felt like the most joyous thing in the world. This illusory scene helped the impatient young man realize, those who only chase after results and neglect the process will never experience the complex, thrilling, and sweet beauty of waiting. Zen wisdom. Waiting carries its own special charm. While waiting, we experience difficulty, taste suffering, and endure restless impatience. Learning how to wait is in reality learning how to appreciate oneself and the gifts that life bestows upon us. 13. The Golden Viper. One day, the Buddha and Ananda were walking through a field in the kingdom of Shravashti. The Buddha suddenly stopped and said, "Ananda, look ahead at that mound of earth. There's a terrifying venomous snake beneath it." Ananda stopped and looked in the direction the Buddha was pointing. After seeing it, he said, "Indeed, there is a large, dangerous snake." Nearby, a farmer overheard the conversation between the Buddha and Ananda. When he heard about the snake in the field, he approached to investigate. Upon digging, he discovered a bar of gold buried in the ground that resembled the mound. This is clearly a bar of gold, but those monks said it was a venomous snake. I wonder what they were thinking. Who could be as lucky as I am, digging up a gold bar in the field? Now I'll never have to worry about food again, the farmer thought as he eagerly dug up the gold and rushed home. The farmer had previously struggled to even afford 3 meals a day. Now, suddenly wealthy, he spent lavishly on new clothes, household items, and extravagant feasts. The other farmers in the village grew suspicious, and rumors spread quickly. Before long, the story reached the ears of the authorities. The officials summoned the farmer and asked, "It is said that you were once very poor, but now you are wealthy overnight. Where did your money come from? Did you steal it? Speak the truth." The farmer, unable to explain, was imprisoned and tortured to confess. Despite being innocent, he could not prove he had not stolen the gold. His family tried to bribe the officials in hopes of saving his life, but the money soon ran out and they were unable to rescue him. In the end, the farmer was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, the farmer, trembling with fear, cried out, "It truly was a venomous snake, Ananda, a terrifying snake, Buddha." Hearing this strange outburst, the officials thought there must be more to the story and reported it to the king. The king summoned the farmer and asked, "You are accused of theft, yet you shouted that it was a venomous snake when facing your punishment. What does that mean?" The terrified farmer explained to the king, "Your Majesty, one day, while working in the field, I overheard the Buddha and Ananda talking as they passed by. They saw the gold bar and said it was a venomous snake, but I didn't believe them and dug it up to take home. Now I realize that gold is indeed a deadly snake. It brought me wealth, but it also led to my death. It is truly more terrifying than any snake." Zen wisdom. People die for wealth and birds perish for food. These are the perils of greed. Once someone's desire for wealth becomes uncontrollable, it grows, causing delusion and leading them to lose their true nature. 14. Gold and silver. Zen Master Thon Chuyet was teaching the Dharma at Vianjak Temple, where he had a large and devoted following. One day, during a lecture, the temple was so crowded that there was no space left. Some followers suggested building a larger hall. One of the devotees donated a pouch containing 50 taels of gold, expressing the wish to contribute to the construction. After receiving the gold, Zen Master Thon Chuyet continued with his tasks as usual. The devotee, feeling dissatisfied because 50 taels was no small amount, followed the master, reminding him, "Master, that pouch I gave you contains 50 taels of gold." Without hesitation, Zen Master Thon Chuyet replied, "You already told me, and I know." Noticing that the master didn't even stop walking, the devotee became irritated and raised his voice. "Master, I donated 50 taels of gold today. That's no small sum. Don't you think a simple thank you is in order?" The master, now standing in front of the Buddha statue in the main hall, stopped and said, "Why do you keep pestering me? You donated to the Buddha, so why do you want me to thank you? You made your offering to create merit for yourself. If you expect merit in return, then let the Buddha thank you. Take your thank you back, and from now on, there will be no more gold and silver between you and the Buddha." Zen wisdom. Doing good deeds brings spiritual joy and fulfillment. When we give to the Buddha, we receive peace of mind in return. 15. Enlightened Zen without desire. There was once a merchant whose business was struggling because he had not yet found the right opportunities. Often frustrated, he became bitter, causing his business to deteriorate further. One day, he sought advice from a Zen master. The master smiled and told him this story. There was a bear who waited patiently by a stream all day, hoping to catch a fish. Finally, he managed to catch a small one. The fish said, "I'm too small to satisfy you. Let me go back into the stream, and in a few years I'll grow into a big fish, and then I'll be worth catching." The bear replied, "Do you know why I'm so big and strong? It's because I never wait for some big opportunity in the future and let go of the small benefits in my hand." After hearing this, the merchant realized his error. Desire often clouds our wisdom and prevents us from seeing clearly. When we become attached to desire, we lose ourselves, chasing after hopes and dreams without appreciating the present. Zen wisdom. Alongside pursuit and suffering, gains often come with losses. Human desires can never fully merge with the object of desire. Instead, they stretch out like rubber bands, only to snap back and cause pain. Understanding this is the key to finding peace. 16. Pure meditation insight. Zen master Kyuthi Vun was a renowned monk who had stayed in many Zen monasteries, where he both studied extensively and taught meditation far and wide. The monastery he led attracted many disciples, but they often could not endure the hardships and left halfway through. This disappointed him greatly. Eventually, he abandoned his position, dissolved the assembly, and wandered from place to place. From then on, no one could trace his whereabouts. 3 years later, one of his disciples discovered him living under a bridge in the capital city, alongside a beggar. The disciple earnestly pleaded for Master Kyuthi to enlighten him. The master curtly replied, "You are not worthy of my teachings." The disciple asked, "How can I become worthy?" Kyuthi replied, "If you can live like me under this bridge for a few days, perhaps I will teach you." So, the disciple disguised himself as a beggar and lived with Master Kyuthi for a day. The next day, one of the beggars died. At midnight, the master and the disciple buried the body on a nearby mountain, then returned to their shelter under the bridge. Kyuthi rolled over and slept soundly until morning, but the disciple could not sleep at all. In the morning, Master Kyuthi said, "Today we don't need to beg for alms, as our dead friend still has some food left." However, the disciple found the dirty bowls unbearable. Kyuthi retorted, "I told you that you could not follow my path. Heaven is here, but you don't know how to enjoy it. You should return to your world and refrain from telling others where I live, as those in the Pure Land do not wish to be disturbed." The disciple wept and knelt down, confessing, "Master, take care. I am not worthy to follow you. I cannot comprehend your heaven." Meditation is inner clarity. Meditation is like a simple garment. Though the garment may be cold, the one wearing it remains clear-minded. Therefore, meditation has nothing to do with external objects. It is self-realization, a pure insight. Zen wisdom. A true meditator knows how to fully enjoy life, finding joy within themselves. Thus, the Pure Land is found in even the most menial tasks, in the smallest acts of kindness, in the midst of chaos. The Pure Land is in the heart of the meditator, not outside the mind. 17. The bottomless money bag. There was a man so poor that he couldn't even afford a bed, living in a house with 4 bare walls and a single bench where he slept each night. One day, he prayed to the Buddha, "If I ever get rich, I will never live like this again." The Buddha gave him a money bag, saying, "This bag contains a gold coin. After you spend it, another will appear, but you can only spend money if you throw away the bag." The man continuously threw out gold coins, unable to sleep through the night as gold scattered everywhere. He no longer needed to work, as the coins were enough to last him a lifetime. But every time he resolved to throw away the bag, he couldn't bear to do it. He kept using the coins, his house filled with gold. Still, he told himself, "I can't throw the bag away yet. I'll wait until I have more gold." Eventually, he became too weak to even throw the coins, yet he still refused to discard the bag, and he died beside it, his house overflowing with gold. Meditation is joy, freedom, and wisdom that arises from liberation from greed and attachment. All things have a transient side, and life is marked by birth, aging, illness, and death. If one can become unhindered, free from attachments with troubles dissolved, that is the beautiful feeling of life. Change your mindset and the world will brighten. Zen wisdom. Deep wisdom comes from life itself. Cultivating meditation is cultivating the mind. The mind is one's attitude. Only by maintaining a good attitude can we define and achieve our true goals, while greed will cause us to forget them. 18. Suffering, origin, cessation, path. An old monk and a young monk lived together in a small temple. One day, while collecting herbs on a mountain, they rescued a girl who had fallen from a cliff. They treated her wounds in the temple, and after a few days, she began to recover. Her natural beauty and fragrance stirred the heart of the young monk, who had matured into adulthood. Unaware of the karmic consequences, the girl remained ignorant. Consumed by desire, the young monk abandoned his monastic discipline and plunged into the world of passion. Rules could not restrain human nature, and the old monk understood this, but silently bid farewell to his beloved disciple. The young monk took a Buddha statue with him, signifying that his practice of Buddhism was a mere habit, a formality, rather than an understanding of its true value. Time passed. The old monk grew older, and the young monk matured. The old monk, having anticipated everything, waited patiently for the young monk's return, ready to impart the final lesson of life. Many years later, the young monk, having tasted the highs and lows of life, returned to the small temple, only to find that the old monk was no longer alive. Only his skeleton remained. At that moment, the young monk awakened to the truths of life. Zen wisdom. Life is a struggle, filled with suffering, fortune, pleasure, seeking, and self-satisfaction. Because of faith, we follow rules. Because of doubt, we stray. Because of thought, we rebel. And through enlightenment, we return to the old ways. This is the cycle of life's return. 19. Because the cord hasn't broken. A young man traveled from home to a Zen monastery. Along the way, he encountered an interesting situation and wanted to bring it up to the elderly Zen master at the monastery. When he arrived, he asked, "What is it that keeps turning around?" The master immediately responded, "Because the cord hasn't broken." The young man was astonished by this answer. Seeing his reaction, the Zen master asked, "What has surprised you so much?" The young man replied, "Master, what surprises me is, how did you know?" He continued, "Today, on my way here, I saw a cow tied to a tree by a rope through its nose. The cow was trying to escape to graze in the meadow, but no matter how it turned around, it couldn't free itself. I thought there was no way you could have seen this. But as soon as you opened your mouth, you answered perfectly." The Zen master smiled and said, "What you asked about was the situation, and what I answered was the principle. You asked about a cow tied by a small cord and unable to free itself, and I replied that the mind is entangled in worldly matters, unable to transcend. One principle explains 100 situations. Fame is the rope, and profit is the cord. Ropes and cords, temptations and worldly worries are all bindings. The 3,000 troubles of worldly life, how many of these cords have you cut?" The Zen master continued, "Sentient beings are like that cow, bound by countless cords of suffering and pain, unable to escape the cycle of life and death." The young man gained insight from this. A kite, no matter how high it flies, cannot soar to endless heights because it is tethered by a string, thus losing the vastness of the sky. A strong horse, no matter how powerful, is controlled by the reins, losing its freedom to gallop. In the same way, people are entangled in worldly matters, all because the cord has not been severed. Zen wisdom. Life is bound by worldly concepts, making it difficult to escape suffering and find peace. If one can thoroughly repent and gain deep understanding, they can return to the path of liberation at any time. 20. The monk and the rosary. The monk said, "Having you as a companion is indeed our shared destiny." The rosary replied, "You and I are linked by Zen." The monk noticed the rosary beads being stiff in his hands and asked, "What's wrong with you?" The rosary said, "You, the monk, should have companions made of precious gems, but I am just a simple wooden rosary. Why do you still hold on to me so tightly?" The monk smiled and said, "Let me tell you a story. A small wave said to a large wave, 'I am so miserable. The other waves are so big, but I am so small. The experiences the other waves enjoy are so beautiful, but mine are terrible.' The large wave replied, 'You are suffering because you don't see your true nature.' The small wave asked, 'Am I not a wave? What else could I be?' The large wave said, 'A wave is just a momentary phenomenon. In reality, you are water.' After hearing the story, the rosary laughed and said, 'I understand now.' The reason I didn't comprehend before is that I didn't see my true essence, thinking I was just myself and comparing myself to others. That's why I felt suffering. In reality, we are all part of the natural world. The monk traveled widely, and the rosary was dazzled by the reflections on the lake and the allure of the mountains. The rosary said, "Things with form will eventually disappear. Is there an unchanging truth in this world?" The monk replied, "The flowers blooming on the mountain are as beautiful as embroidered silk. They appear as if the stream has stopped flowing, but in fact, it is constantly moving. Flowers wither easily, yet they always bloom again. Though the stream flows, the surface of the water remains unchanged." The rosary smiled and continued, "The meaning of life lies in the journey. Movement is the only eternal truth." The rosary felt the monk's white beard brushing against its beads and heard the monk calmly ask, "After 100 years, where will the monk go?" The rosary hesitated, but still smiled and replied, "He will become a pig, dog, donkey, or horse." The monk asked again, "And after that?" The rosary continued to smile, "He will go to hell." The monk said, "I have practiced all my life. Why would I still go to hell after I die?" The rosary said, "If you don't go to hell, how will you be able to teach me?" The monk was enlightened at that moment. Buddha is everywhere. Heaven has Buddha, but isn't hell where Buddha is most needed? With this realization, the monk held the rosary and sat down, becoming one with the flames. In the fire, the rosary softly murmured to the monk, "I can see our past lives." The monk asked, "What were our past lives like?" The rosary replied, "In our past life, I was the wick, and you were the candle. I lit you by melting myself. I continued to burn in the flame born from your melting." The monk laughed and said, "In this life, you have enlightened me, and I have guided you. We seek balance in the chaos of the world and find harmony by distancing ourselves from the noise. Even amidst the clamor, can there still be a clear path? The answer is yes. The way has the power to change the world. While we cannot predict how much it will change, we must give our best effort, and we will find peace." Zen wisdom. In the bustling city, amidst the crowded streets and daily busyness, take a moment to pause, enjoy the bright moon in the sky, walk quietly under its light, and reflect to gain a deeper understanding of life. 22. Shunji's Zen Enlightenment. Emperor Shunji of the Qing dynasty was a ruler with a profound cultivation in Buddhist Dharma. His thoughts were entirely in harmony with the teachings of Buddhism. This can be seen through his Zen poem. "Gold and white jade are not precious, only the cassock is difficult to wear. 100 years, 36,000 days, are less than half a day of a monk's tranquility. The imperial robe exchanged for a purple cassock, just because of a single wrong thought years ago. I was originally a monk from the Western Pure Land. Why was I born into an imperial family?" The Shurangama Sutra is a scripture in Buddhism that reveals the true nature of all external forces, including demonic beings and spirits, which cannot hide once they encounter the sutra. Moreover, aside from its discussion of the various stages and demonic illusions during meditation, the Shurangama Sutra delves into the breaking of the 5 skandhas, form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness, and reveals the phenomena associated with cultivation. It stands as a righteous teaching among all rightful teachings. For thousands of years, people have sung its praises, though few truly understand it. One day, Emperor Shunji invited Master Yulin to the palace to discuss the Dharma. Shunji asked, "The Shurangama Sutra mentions the 7 places of mind investigation. May I ask, is the mind located in any of these places? Does the mind exist there now?" Master Yulin responded, "It is difficult to find the mind." Shunji asked again, "Do enlightened beings still experience emotions such as joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure?" Master Yulin responded, "What are joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure?" Shunji continued, "Mountains and rivers arise from deluded thoughts. If delusions cease, will mountains and rivers still exist?" Master Yulin answered, "It's like a person awakening from a dream. Does the dream still exist?" Shunji asked, "How should one practice?" Master Yulin replied, "Sitting, bowing, and doing nothing." Shunji asked, "What is greatness?" Master Yulin said, "Light is obstructed from all 4 sides, separated by above and below." Shunji then asked, "How can one realize their true nature?" Master Yulin quoted the 6th patriarch. "Without thinking of good or evil, at that moment, what is your original face? Afterward, whenever Emperor Shunji met people, he said, "Having one conversation with Master Yulin makes me regret meeting him too late." Master Yulin was a dignified and serene monk known for his tranquility and minimal speech. Even when the emperor asked about the Dharma, his words were few, leaving people with the feeling that Zen wisdom is not easily obtained. Zen wisdom. Zen is the very thought in front of us. This thought itself is all the Dharma. All the Dharma encompasses all things and phenomena. As soon as the mind moves, it involves both the mind and the object. Neither comes first or last. The mind is not before the object, nor is the object before the mind. 23. Unmoving mind is stillness. One evening, a monk on a pilgrimage reached the middle of a mountain and saw light emanating from a small house. Delighted, he thought he might have the fortune to meet a great person. He entered the house and saw an old man sitting cross-legged on a heated bed. The monk asked, "What practice are you cultivating?" The old man replied, "The Bodhisattva mantra." The monk became even more excited, thinking that in his 40 years as a monk, he had never heard of the Bodhisattva mantra. He eagerly asked the old man to teach him. The old man said, "I have been reciting this mantra for over 60 years, but I have never passed it on to anyone. It is 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Hum." However, the old man mistakenly pronounced the last syllable as Niu, cow. Upon hearing this, the monk laughed and corrected him, saying that the last syllable should be Hum, not Niu. When the monk left, the old man began reciting it correctly, but somehow he couldn't get it right. 3 months later, the monk passed by the mountain again, thinking the old man must have improved his practice since correcting the mantra. But when he entered the house, there was no light, and the old man was struggling to recite the mantra correctly. The monk was puzzled. Why did the old man emit light when reciting the incorrect mantra, but no light when reciting it correctly? When the monk returned to his temple, he sought the abbot's advice. The abbot said, "Reciting mantras requires the mind to be still. When the mind is still, the inner fire appears and light is emitted." The old man practiced the mantra for 60 years, reaching the point where his mind was unmoved and thus his inner fire appeared. When you corrected him, his mind became unsettled and the inner fire disappeared. This is why it is said, "Do not cling to external forms," that is Zen. When the mind is not disturbed, that is stillness. Wisdom and Dharma blend together, and emptiness is realized as wisdom. When the blood and energy are strong, they become gentle and balanced. A gentleman masters things while a petty person becomes a slave to them. The principles are many, but unfortunately, calm mind is something one can only encounter and not seek. Worldly troubles are driven by desire, and the hardships that follow are not mere coincidences. Zen wisdom. Zen teaches that the mind, when influenced by external changes, becomes either Buddha or demon, depending on one's state of mind. 25. Grasping and letting go. A devotee once said to Zen master Muktian, "My wife is greedy and stingy. She refuses to give even a single coin for charity. Could you come to my house and enlighten her about doing good deeds?" Out of great compassion, Muktian agreed. When the master arrived at the devotee's house, the wife welcomed him, but could not bring herself to offer even a cup of tea as a donation. The master clenched his fist and said, "Lady, look at my hand. If it stayed like this every day, how would it feel?" She replied, "If your hand was like that every day, it would be sick, deformed." "Exactly," said the master, opening his hand. "And what about if it stayed like this every day?" she said. "That too would be deformed." The master then said, "Lady, you are correct. Both ways are deformed. Holding on to money greedily without giving is deformed, but spending without saving is also deformed. Money must flow. It has to come in and go out." Hearing this, the lady came to a realization. Those who are greedy and stingy should know that forming connections with generosity leads to prosperity and success. Without planting seeds, how can there be a harvest? Giving should be done willingly, otherwise it becomes impure charity. Just like a human hand, always clenching is deformed, and always open is deformed. Only by balancing holding and letting go is it natural and beautiful. Zen wisdom. The rise of greed comes from both external and internal causes. External causes are the conditions, but internal causes are decisive. Controlling oneself and often being mindful can lead to inner peace and joy. 26. The 4 great elements are all empty. All compounded things are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows, like dew and lightning. Thus should you view them. These are 4 Buddhist verses, and they form the final stanza of the Diamond Sutra. These 4 lines summarize the entire content of the Diamond Sutra and represent Buddha Shakyamuni's profound understanding of the universe, encapsulating the Buddhist worldview. Zen Master Phut-un was preaching the Dharma, and upon hearing this, the scholar official Sudongpo hurried to attend the lecture. The hall was already packed, and there were no seats left. The master saw Sudongpo and said, "The seats are all full, there's no room for the scholar to sit." Sudongpo, a longtime admirer of Zen, retorted, "Since there are no seats, I'll sit on your body using the 4 great elements and 5 aggregates as a cushion." The master smiled at Sudongpo's Zen-like response and said, "Scholar, I have a question for you. If you answer it, you may use my body as a seat. If not, you must leave your jade belt as a memento for the temple." Sudongpo, confident in his intellect, agreed. The master asked, "The 4 great elements do not exist, and the 5 aggregates are empty. So where will you sit?" Sudongpo was stumped. The physical body made up of the 4 great elements, earth, water, fire, and wind, is an illusion with no true substance. There was nowhere for him to sit. As a result, Sudongpo had no choice but to leave his jade belt at the temple, which remains at Kimsun Temple to this day. In the phrase, all compounded things, compounded refers to all things, things refers to actions, and here it implies the movement of all things. Things also refers to the rules governing this movement. In other words, all things, their movement, and the rules governing them are fleeting like water bubbles, illusions in dreams, and reflections in water, like dew and lightning. Zen wisdom. Zen is incredibly profound. It does not point to any one thing, yet nothing escapes its scope. Zen contains everything and at the same time transcends everything. 27. Standing in the snow, cutting off his arm. In those days, Bodhidharma sat on a small leaf boat, drifting across the sea for 3 years, enduring many hardships before finally arriving in China. In 527, he reached Shaolin Temple on Mount Song. He found the mountains surrounding the area, the dense forests, and the serene beauty of the scenery deeply calming. Thus, he chose Shaolin Temple as the place to establish the first school of Zen Buddhism in China, gathering monks from across the land. From then on, Bodhidharma became the founder of Zen Buddhism in China, and Shaolin Temple became its ancestral home. At that time, there was a prominent monk in China named Shen Guang. He gave lectures on Buddhist sutras at the Wuhua platform in Nanjing, and people came in droves to hear him speak. When he learned that Bodhidharma was a highly accomplished monk from India, well versed in the Dharma, he traveled to Shaolin to meet him. Shen Guang earnestly sought to become Bodhidharma's disciple. Bodhidharma, unsure of Shen Guang's sincerity, gently refused him. Nevertheless, Shen Guang persisted, following Bodhidharma closely, caring for him with devotion. One bitterly cold winter day, Bodhidharma was meditating at the Bodhidharma pavilion behind the temple. Shen Guang stood outside, serving his teacher. The snow was so deep that it reached Shen Guang's knees, and a thick layer of snow covered his body. Bodhidharma noticed and asked, "What are you doing?" Shen Guang replied, "I am seeking the Dharma from the Buddha." Bodhidharma thought for a moment and said, "If you want me to teach you the Dharma, the snow must turn red." Understanding the mystical Zen teaching, Shen Guang did not hesitate. He drew out a knife and severed his left arm. Blood gushed out, staining the snow and Shen Guang's robes red. The sound of the knife cutting through echoed to the heavens, reaching Buddha himself, who, upon hearing it, sent his cassock flying eastward. At that moment, Shaolin Temple was bathed in a red light, and colorful clouds illuminated the sky. Large snowflakes, as red as blood, floated down like feathers. Shen Guang, holding his severed arm, circled the Bodhidharma pavilion once, still waiting in the crimson snow. Seeing this, Bodhidharma realized Shen Guang's profound devotion and faith in Zen. Bodhidharma then transmitted the robe and bowl to Shen Guang, giving him the Dharma name Huika, and making him the second patriarch of Shaolin's Zen lineage. To commemorate Huika's act of cutting his arm in the snow, the monks of the temple renamed the Bodhidharma Pavilion to the Snow Pavilion. Zen wisdom. A sharp sword is forged through rigorous testing, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from enduring the harsh cold. Great wisdom leads to great courage, and great courage brings fearlessness. Fearlessness allows one to persevere, and perseverance leads naturally to the attainment of true enlightenment. 28. Don't seek Buddha from others. After the new temple was completed, the old monk informed the young monk that he planned to carve a Buddha statue himself. The young monk asked if they should find a model statue to use as a reference. The old monk said, "No need, I'll use myself as the model." The young monk replied, "You can, but I can't. I'm far from being suitable." The old monk laughed and said, "You carve after me, and I'll carve after you." The young monk didn't understand. The old monk explained, "When mind and body are in harmony, words and actions are in unison, you will become Buddha and carve Buddha. When you become Buddha, it will be perfectly natural. If your heart is peaceful and your reasoning is sound, then both your virtues and appearance will embody Buddha. How many people in this world are pursuing Buddha and could one day become Buddha? Every Buddha was initially just an ordinary person. Through diligent practice, they gradually carved themselves into Buddhas. As long as one practices sincerely and wholeheartedly strives toward Zen, they will eventually become a true Buddha. Zen wisdom. Each person can create their own unique essence without imitating anyone else. You are you. Why can't you become Buddha on your own? Therefore, don't seek Buddha from others, but instead follow your own path. 29. Personality is the flame. People often ask the Buddha, "Where does the Buddha go after death?" The Buddha would often smile and remain silent. However, this question kept being asked repeatedly, so the Buddha said to his disciples, "Bring me a candle, and I will tell you where the Buddha goes after death." The disciples hurriedly brought a candle. The Buddha said, "Light the candle and bring it close to me so I can see its light." The disciple lit the candle and brought it to the Buddha, carefully shielding it from the wind, afraid it might go out. But the Buddha scolded the disciple, saying, "Why are you shielding it? What is destined to be extinguished will naturally extinguish itself. Shielding it is useless, just like death. It cannot be avoided." Then the Buddha blew out the candle and asked, "Does anyone know where the light of the candle has gone? Where has its flame disappeared to?" The disciples looked at each other, but no one could answer. The Buddha said, "The Buddha's death is like the extinguishing of a candle. Where the candlelight goes, that is where the Buddha goes after death. The principle of the extinguished flame is the same. When the Buddha dies, he ceases to exist. He is part of the whole and will perish with it. Each person is an individual, forever inseparable from this present reality. The Buddha is no different. This is the cause and effect of the individual and the whole. What must end will end. What must begin will begin. It is through ending that life begins again. Why suffer in pursuit of understanding this? No cause means no effect. Zen wisdom. When a person is alive, the lamp is lit. When they die, the lamp is extinguished. Don't overthink matters that do not concern you. Doing so is futile. 30. Green grass ties the monks. When Buddha was at Jetavana Monastery in Shravasti, one day many monks were returning from alms rounds and passed through a deserted field. A gang of robbers spotted them and approached to rob them. After stripping the monks of their clothes, the gang leader was still unsatisfied and ordered, "These monks might go into the village and spread rumors. We must quickly eliminate them all." One of the robbers, who had once been a monk and understood the Dharma, suggested, "Leader, there's no need to kill them. These monks are very compassionate. Just tie them with green grass and they won't dare to struggle, because they won't harm even a blade of grass. They won't escape or speak out of fear." The gang leader, finding this reasonable, followed the suggestion and tied up the monks with green grass before leaving. Bound by the grass and committed to upholding their vows, the monks dared not break the grass, remaining immobile. Naked and exposed, they suffered from the heat, mosquito bites, and the torment of flies. As night fell, wild animals roamed, wolves howled, and owls screeched, turning the deserted field into a hellish scene. Many monks, terrified, began to grumble and complain. An elder monk saw their fear and spoke, "Life is fleeting, even shorter than a river's flow. Even the heavenly palaces may one day collapse, so how much more uncertain is human life? Do not lament the impermanence of life, but instead value the importance of upholding the precepts." Do not break the green grass, and do not think that this life is wasted, for being reborn as a human is already a rare and precious opportunity. What is truly valuable is our understanding of the Buddha's teachings and adherence to the precepts. Because of their commitment to the precepts, the monks did not move from their positions, even though they were bound by the grass. The elder monk continued, "Our practice is like this situation. Even in the face of terror, we must endure, and if necessary, we should sacrifice our lives for the noble Dharma. Even if we could stand up, there's nowhere for us to go. Our only choice is to uphold the precepts until the end." The young monks, inspired by the elder's words, sat upright in silence, unmoving in the darkness of the field. The next morning, the king passed by the area on a hunting expedition with his army. Seeing the monks, he was puzzled and ordered his attendants to dismount and investigate. The attendants quickly returned and reported, "These monks are naked and ashamed, bowing their heads and saying nothing. However, upon closer inspection, I noticed a mark on their left shoulders. It's clear they are monks, as they wear robes that expose their left shoulders. They must have been robbed by bandits." The king, still curious, wondered, "They are bound by grass, which could easily be broken, yet they remain still like sacrificial lambs. Why is that?" The king personally dismounted and approached the monks, asking, "You are all healthy and unharmed, so why are you bound by grass and unable to move? Are you under some spell or practicing austerity?" The monks replied, "The green grass is weak and easily breakable, but we are bound by the precepts of the Dharma, so we cannot break it. To cut the grass would be akin to killing life. We adhere to the precepts of the Buddha's teachings, and therefore we cannot sever the grass." Upon hearing this, the king was greatly moved. He personally untied the grass from the monks and praised them, saying, "You monks are admirable, sacrificing even your lives to uphold the precepts. I too wish to seek refuge in the great Buddha, take refuge in the unsurpassed Dharma, and take refuge in monks who uphold the precepts. Only by seeking refuge can we escape suffering." Zen wisdom. Precepts are invisible and intangible, as weak as blades of grass, and yet they are not easily broken. The monks did not break them. People too should remain steadfast in following their own principles, just as these monks were with the blades of grass. Do not disturb what is sacred.